Hey, Darren.
How are you?
I'm not too bad. Can't complain. Well, I'll not complain. January blues and all that, but getting through it. It's almost over now.
January blues exacerbated by lockdown.
It's been just a whole year of blues, and now 2021 seems no different. But
Exactly. But hopefully, as you say, there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. We're coming out the other side.
yeah, how's things with you?
Yeah, not too bad. I think we're like everybody in the sector, we're starting to see a bit of a slowdown, certainly in the number of moves that are happening. But when we're catching up with clients, their sales pipeline is pretty good. It's pretty strong. But on the letting side, obviously less and less moves. But we'll see how that looks after the sort of stamp duty holiday.
Yeah, it's been amazing how little that up until now that the industry has slowed down. It's really showed quite a resilience on the part of it. But some sort of impact is bound to have happened, and it's surprising that it's been this long. But it's good to see that the market's been resilient up until this point. But
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's good. It's good to connect again. This is the final in a series of webinars. Hopefully, everyone is tuned in for all of them. And just as a way of introduction, my name is Curran. I'm the commercial lead at RentProfile. Connor, I'll let you introduce yourself.
And I'm Connor. I'm one of the business development executives here with Tilt, and myself and my colleague Kate specialize in the Origin software that we'll be demonstrating here, and sort of the main focus of the integration with RentProfile.
Exactly. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is showing hopefully what you're going to do, Connor, and correct me if I'm wrong, is give us an overview of Origin, of the software and how it's sort of used by your letting agent clients at the minute, and then hopefully kind of dive into how they can request a reference check directly through the software. And maybe I can answer a few specific questions about our referencing and how the report comes back. And then maybe towards the end, we can talk a little bit about our kind of plans for the future, pandemic aside.
Yeah, if that ever happens. But no, yeah, so I think the only thing to do is to jump into it. I'll start sharing my screen and give everyone a brief overview of Origin.
Sounds good.
Okay, hopefully this is working. You can see that all right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Okay, so whenever you first log into Origin, you're met with the dashboard. Now, this is at the minute is populated with a number of alerts. So you have your alert summary, and that's populated with your overdue rents, your trouble tickets, and tenant issues. And here you have your tenancy alerts, rent alerts, and your safety check alerts. Now, I would be mindful that this is test data. So I don't know about you, but I would be hoping that none of my tenants were about £150,000 in arrears. But you
Well, at least
never
it's
know.
good to know, Connor?
Yeah, I'd be worried if this was my letting agency, but it's only test, so don't worry yourself. For the purpose of this, we'll just go through a number of steps that people would be doing if they logged in for the first time, just to get themselves up and running. So the first one would be your add a landlord into the system. So you have a number of tabs here. They're all fairly self-explanatory, and they're all fairly simple to work your way through. Whenever you add a new landlord, it's fairly typical of any form you'll have filled out online. So the ones with the red asterisk beside it are mandatory. But the amount of information you have to enter isn't too extensive, so it won't take too long. I hope you don't mind. I'll make you my landlord.
Absolutely.
And just for the purpose of this, 1, 2, 3 straight. You said you're from Ballymena, was it?
Ballymena boy.
Now, I'll not disclose Kern's postcode in this, but an interesting thing with Origin is that you have a postcode lookup. So if you put in postcode here, you will be able to find an address and select it from the drop-down menu.
Oh, it's easy.
Okay. The rest of these are fairly self-explanatory. Maintenance commission is the percentage of the rent that you would collect as an agent. Now that can be described, that can be put in as a percentage or just a flat fee. Oh, sorry, no, that's no maintenance commission. Sorry, is if any maintenance is carried out on the property, you would either take a percent or you would have a flat fee for it. And the maintenance threshold sometimes throws people. That's just if the maintenance carried out is under this £100, then you don't have to bother me. You just go out and you just do it, and that's it. So we'll add the landlord into the system. Then the next thing to do would be add a property. Fairly self-explanatory again. Properties, add property, and you can select a landlord from the drop-down menu, or you can use the quick search. And there's Karen there.
Okay.
Okay. And the rest of this again, fairly self-explanatory. Red fields are mandatory. And you can select your town. If it's not here, you can add a new town, but purpose of this again, I'll just throw that in. And you specify the bank account that any rent receipts will go in. Now this one up on the right is what sometimes throws people with the opening landlord balance. Now the opening landlord balance is any fees associated with the property already. If you're an established landlord with Origin, we don't expect you to upload every piece of past information into it. So you can just specify your opening balance date for when you will start managing the property through Origin. And this is any arrears or credits associated with the tenancy. Management fee, I'm sure all letting agents are fairly well versed with the management fee, and this can be changed, configured here, or if you want to make a more sort of wide ranging change, you can get us to do that for you. Finder's fee, again, one-off fee. If you've found the landlord, you can charge this, and any questions you might have with any of these can be answered with these quick drop downs. Right, so you would add that property and you're brought into this. So you have a number of tabs associated with the properties. Again, they're all fairly self-explanatory. Details, any tenancies associated with the property, fees, expenses, so they would be applied, inspections, safety checks, they can all be uploaded and held against. And then there's an option up here to hold any documents against the property. Now, the storage of Origin is unlimited, so the idea is that you would replace all the paper in your agency and just use Origin to manage it.
Excellent. Andy, given the fact that less and less of us are going into the office.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really sort of any way we can ease that transition to working from home is beneficial in these times. Okay, so the last stage would be to add a tenancy. Now, this is where I'll go into the rent profile stuff, so I'll just make everyone aware of the different tabs before I go into that. Suppliers, that's again self-explanatory. If you have any preferred agencies or people or handymen that you have to carry out work in your agency, you can store them here. And this is where you can issue trouble tickets to. So any work orders that you need to put out, you can put them out to your preferred supplier and the invoice will be issued. This is quite an interesting thing we have is the tenant maintenance issues where they can submit it and you can make this available on your website. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. If letting agents want to be plagued with tenant issues, but it is configured for mobile use and they can upload any pictures of the maintenance issue and then that can be converted immediately into a trouble ticket within Origin.
That's really handy, Connor, just as a kind of feature, because obviously you'll have renters ringing into the office. It's very hard to diagnose. So having kind of one place you can sort of collect those and then view it within Origin, it's a really useful feature.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's the optimization for the mobile sort of speeds things up that they can go take a picture and upload it and that's it. And then it's on the letting agent to work out if it's a broken boiler that needs immediate assistance or they're just giving off a bit of broken light bulb. So it gives you a little bit of control as well. Then the banking area, that is the accounting in Origin is quite powerful. So Again, you would usually use the search, but you can view all the fees and rent receipts reported against the tenants or the properties. I'll just get an example. So here, and then you would have your reports. Met with that. It's in the admin area. An interesting thing, I know everyone's very concerned with GDPR. We have user access levels, so you can delegate different roles within the system, and that will, dictate what they can see within Origin. So that's quite a useful one. Right, so we'll jump into the rent profile stuff. So if you were prospecting a tenant to be added into a property, obviously you want to do some checks to make sure that you're not going to be ripped off or they're not completely useless. So this is a little bit of a Blue Peter one that I did earlier. Now, obviously, if you're prospecting a tenant, they wouldn't already be associated with a property. But this in the tenancy tab, you have this. So this is the tenant reference submission. Now, if I wanted to submit a tenant reference to themselves at RentProfile, it's very easy. Well, first of all, sorry, I would say that if you're an Origin customer and you want to set up the RentProfile integration, very simple. There would be a tab here. So this would be slightly different in that it would say enable RentProfile. We click that, contact us, and that would lodge a support request with us. Now, this is a bit of fragrant advertising, but our support is very, very fast. I think it's compared to an industry standard, it's amazing. It's about half an hour most, but most of them would be done within about 5 minutes. So you would set that up, and then you're good to go. Now, once you want to submit a tenant reference check, just populate these fields with an address, the tenancy per person, and the total rent. Now, you can do guarantor checks, and you would submit the reference request. A good thing that's obviously supplied by RentProfile and advertised through Origin is that you have a status, so you have live updates on your where your reference check is, and you can go in and check that. And I usually, I'll let Karen explain this, but they're very, very fast.
Indeed. So just to build on that point, Connor. So yes, of course, at any point you're able to see, as you say, through Origin, the status of the reference. So it could be sort of waiting on their verification of their employment or their earnings, or maybe on their identity. But 9 times out of 10, we don't see a need for that, just purely because the kind of full report, the speed of it being returned, means that it's there before you have to kind of speak to the landlord anyway and update them on why it's taking so long.
Yeah, my experience with them has been very good. They're very quick. By the time you want to even check the progress of it, it's done. So you would do this now. You report. Again, because I've made one earlier, I will just go into this. And I'll let Karen talk through this, because this is obviously his forte. So just shout if you want me to scroll down.
Absolutely. So could you bring up the report there, Connor? I can't quite see it on my screen.
See it there?
I know I can't, unfortunately. That's quite all right. If we can, I'm sure I can talk through it.
I've got it there. Sorry.
No worries at all. Yep, there we are. Recognize this. So yeah, if what Connor's showing here is the sort of full report that you would get back from RentProfile into Origin, and it outlines obviously an overview of the applicant and the property address that they're being referenced against and the rental amount. It's a very simple to read report. Obviously, it's got our recommendation at the top, which in this case is proceed, and there are a couple of categories for sort of how we do this. So the main ones would be low risk and medium low risk. Now, these references will sort of fly through. We're ones that we kind of endorse and say we're happy to rent. There are two other categories. There's medium, which is just on the cusp of affordability. So the renter might be within that sort of percentage of the affordability of the rent. And it's really then over to you as the agent to speak to the landlord and decide whether they're happy on this occasion to proceed. And the sort of final category is the high risk category, which we would recommend taking a guarantor, which again can obviously be requested as a reference through Origin, or 6 months rent in advance. But if you want to scroll down there slightly, Connor, what we can see is a range of all of the checks that we've carried out as part of this report. So we obviously verify the identity, whether they have any CCJs or adverse credit history, bankruptcy, etc. We look at the affordability based on the rental amount. So obviously that changes depending on how much the renter has to pay. We take into consideration their previous employment, and we've updated our journeys, Connor, as I may have mentioned before, to include things like whether they're on furlough or the job support scheme, as many employees are, as we're finding, and everything right through to the bottom there that you'll be able to see the preliminary right to rent check, which is the tenant confirming that they have the sort of documents which the agent can check separately, or indeed we can do via video call. And of course, their previous landlord, or whether it's their first rental, as well as the self-declarations around pets. So it's a really simple, clear report. You can send that on to the landlord. But as I say, if you're happy with the recommendations, it's really just a case of sort of running with that. And those reports, 95% of them, you read the testimonials on our websites, are coming back within 24 hours, but we have seen some come through as quickly as 30 minutes.
Yeah. No, I was, whenever I first came across and we first decided to do this, and everyone, Karen told me about the speed of the checks and how quickly they could come back. The first thing that obviously popped into my head, and I'm sure many of the letting agents would be the same, is what sort of checks are being done here? How can this come back so quickly? How can I trust this if it is so fast? But that report really sort of lays it out, and it's very transparent that these are the checks that are done, and they are they're very extensive, aren't they?
They are indeed. In fact, we hit, without getting too technical, we cover, I would say, twice as many checks as a typical provider. And that's not just purely for the security aspect, Connor. It's because we want these tenants to proceed. We want them to pass, and everybody's kind of in the same boat, that we all want to go ahead. The tenant wants to pass, the agent wants them to pass. We all want to do it quickly. By kind of digging a bit deeper and getting that additional info, that's what allows us to kind of push those extra 20% of tenants through, because we're willing to go the extra mile and find out a bit more about them. If they're self-employed, we'll do some more checks and try and push them through.
And I'm sure that's, some people would find that surprising, that, actually, if you dig deeper, then they're more likely to get it, it could be worse for the agents if they're turning away these prospective clients and turning them away. It's hindering their growth. But if they're able to do these more in-depth checks, not only are they guaranteeing that they're attracting a tenant that is going to pay and they're not going to have issues with, but they are they're getting them in and they're not turning them away for just no reason.
That's exactly it, Connor. I mean, I think any referencing company, if someone's a nurse and they've been employed for 5 years, they're going to pass, no problems at all. It's those edge cases or those slightly more difficult ones. And given the rise in the number of people who are self-employed in the gig economy, more and more people have irregular earnings or have a slightly different structure of employment. And so referencing needs to be able to reflect that and to help those people to move as well.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm sure people have some questions about the practicalities of it. Is there any limit to the amount of checks that agents can do?
Not at all. So the good thing is the technology does the heavy lifting on our side, but we have a full team of operations and support that are available just by emailing support@rentprofile.co. Vast majority of the time, there is no issue at all, but our response rates are very similar to yours, Connor. Within 20 minutes, you're going to get a reply to your query. That's going to get sorted and solved. And every even though the tech does do the heavy lifting, as I said, every single report, like the one that you're looking at, through a final human check, an overview to make sure that it's of the right quality, and that's before it's issued to the agent, so they can kind of have a bit of trust, a bit of faith in the robustness of the system as well.
No, absolutely. That's great. People might, it's good to hear that a person has the last last check on it. But no, that's great. Well, this one's a bit more forward looking. I think everyone has sort of garnered that sort of attitude now that they're looking forward, whether it's to a holiday or just the end of lockdown. But what are the plans for RentProfile and Tilt going forward? Anything to share?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that we've obviously been discussing, or certainly the powers that be, Paul and Brian, have been discussing in the background on how we can work together and build on the success so far. So I think a couple of things that hopefully will be coming in the next few months will be sort of looking to integrate our onboarding. So that whole pre-tenancy piece into Origin, so that a letting agent can just literally shake hands with the tenant, or as I say, pre-COVID could have shook hands with the tenant. They agree to take the property and have that entire process automated with a few details.
I think it's an elbow bump now, isn't it? You can't.
Yes, indeed.
So, perfect.
That's kind of the short plans, and then I'm sure there's a lot more we can be adding and working together in the future.
Yeah.
So
it's it is exciting. It's really sort of an end-to-end management of all the tenancies. If you're helping with the onboarding and the reference checks, and then Origin sort of takes over from the day-to-day and even the end of the tenancy.
Property management and checkout, exactly.
It's an exciting time. But a final little one, and this could be the cherry on top. Is there any deal that you have to offer the
I'm sure I could pull something like that. No, absolutely. We've already seen from the last couple of webinars, Connor, kind of great that there's a lot of shared clients, and we're companies that sort of work on the same basis. So we're very happy to offer anyone who wants to try referencing through Origin. We're going to do the first 5 references at no charge at all. So you'll be able to test it, see the results, see if the speed is there. It's no risk. And then kind of work on that relationship afterwards. And if anybody's got any questions at all, either for myself or for Connor on how that works, we'll share our email addresses in the chat. By all means, get in touch, and we can sort of do this in more detail with you.
Yeah, that's excellent. But I think that's everything, is it?
That's a wrap.
That is the end of the webinar series.
Yes, indeed. I'm looking forward to the next time that we do one of these webinars, Connor, that we might not actually be in lockdown.
Oh, that is wishful thinking now.
Yeah. I probably jinxed it.
Well, if any of the webinar attendees feels a bit miffed about another lockdown extension, you know where to put your blame. So
yeah, exactly.
You can direct all angry emails to Karen once he shares his address.
Yeah, of course. Send them my way.
No, perfect. Yeah, I look forward to the next one. They've been enjoyable.
And hope they've been useful to everybody else.
I think a number of emails will be going out. So if you've just tuned into this one and you want to check the rest of the series out, there'll be links to that. You can hear some more of our ramblings, but hopefully there was some use out of them.
Well, look, Connor, thanks very much.
Well, always good to talk.
Indeed. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.